Have you already started selling this on the market?
Morning. Thanks a lot for having me over. Well, it has been decided by the government to release about 5 million barrels of crude in a coordinated effort with other countries like China, Japan, Korea, and the United States, of course. And the government will advise us exactly when to release and to whom to release, which refineries to get the crude. So once I hear from the government on the quantity and the location to be released, I will be ready to release the crude from those locations.
So, Mr. Ahuja, this brings us to the central point. With this coordinated sale of millions of barrels of oil by the likes of India, the UK, various others, and of course chiefly the United States, surely it would only move the needle for the oil price in the short term?
Well, I believe it should have little impact in the short term. And now with OPEC planning to increase the production from January by about 400,000 barrels, that should make the price quite reasonable. In the last few days, I think we have seen a lot of fluctuation in the crude oil prices going right down from Brent, moving from 67 to 72, and again back to 65. So a lot of fluctuation and volatility in the crude market at present.
When we look at the government rules in terms of commercialising as much as 50% of the strategic reserves, how soon do you think you're going to be able to lease out the likes of 30%?
Yeah, I mean, we have got that approval to lease out 30% of our available reserves, and we are in the process of evacuating some crude from the storages. And the two major refiners, which is MRPL and HPCL, are evacuating the crude. And as soon as they create the space to be taken on lease, we'll be ready to lease out the storages, which I believe should happen by January next year, January 22.
Can you tell us about the interest and what kind of companies have had interest, how much interest there is?
Well, I mean, I have interest from the two companies which I just mentioned, MRPL and HPCL. And besides that, we can issue an expression of interest for any international company to store crude in India on a leased basis.
Let's talk about how many days of India's oil needs are going to actually be stored, and I guess just to the extent of what kind of capacity we're going to see here.
Okay, in phase one, we have constructed about 39 million barrels of storage, which can cater to about 9.5 days of the country's requirement. And over and above this, we have the refiners who have the stock, which is about 64 days. So as of today, we have roughly 74 days of storage in the country.
Okay, the next tranche, if you will you perhaps consider foreign purchases?
Yeah, I mean, the government has already planned to move ahead and expand the strategic storages to phase two, where we intend to build another about 48 million barrels of crude storage, underground storage. And this is to be done on a public-private participation mode, which is a PPP mode, wherein the government pitches in some money and the remaining is brought in by the investor. Could be a foreign investor or a domestic investor. And on that, we intend to issue the RFP for phase two as early as January 22.
Mr. Ahuja, give me a sense, generally looking at the oil complex there in India, we've got right now this new variant of the coronavirus, a couple of cases just at the moment in India. But should it actually get worse, how does that play into your forecast?
Well, I don't see the demand going down because the variant, I believe, is not very infectious at present. And the infections, what people are getting, are very mild. So this may not affect the crude demand or the product demand in the country.
And just getting to the virus strain, we were speaking to an epidemiologist yesterday, essentially saying it was going to be when, not if, it did come into India. And of course, we have since seen that. How worried are you in general about that and what it's going to mean in terms of another wave for India and more broadly, to Risha's point on demand here too?
Well, I believe the second wave that we had way back in March last year which the India combated very nicely. And this way also, we are all well prepared. The government agencies, the healthcare department, they are all very well prepared to tackle any emergency situation in India. And I believe the impact will not be much on the oil industry.